I would imagine it would be hard to take the positive out of this today.
I didn't see a single positive thing we did on that field tonight.
They scored, and then you had the big completion. You had to settle for the field goal, and then they scored those two quick touchdowns with the blocked punt, and it was like all of a sudden you were down 21-3. You know?
21-3 right off the bat. You know, we throw a pass right in the end zone that we dropped. I mean, we're wide open. There was no one even in the same vicinity. We dropped the ball. So now instead of 7-7, it's 7-3, and we make a couple of huge mistakes, which, you know, was mistake after mistake. Obviously, you know, Harvard's a very good football team. They're on a roll right now, and you know, I give them all the credit in the world. They went out and won the game. They executed. If you remember earlier last week, you know, I said the thing I'm impressed most about Harvard is that they do go out and execute. Sure, they're talented, they have a lot of depth, but you know, to go out and make as few mistakes as they make as a football team is really a tribute to them and a tribute to their coaches. And it's rare that you get a team that can execute that consistently at that level. So, you know, a lot of the credit goes to them, but at the same time, 52-3, you know, is a hard pill to swallow, and especially when you watch your team make multiple mistakes and just make it easier on them. Drop passes, fumbled snaps, things like that. And does the weather have an effect on it? Absolutely, the weather has an effect, but it has an effect on both teams. I watched the other team go out there and execute pretty darn well under the same weather conditions, but we failed to do that. And part of that is our inexperience. You know, we go out there with a quarterback that I think's got a great career ahead of him, and you know, he's got what 3-3 and 2. He's got, you know, that many practices, 8 practices as a college quarterback. You know what I mean? So, you know, had he at least been a backup in the preseason, you know, he would have gotten a lot more reps as we went along, and he did. And that's it. I mean, the injury bug hit us, and you know, and that's just the way it goes. And you know, we couldn't move the ball on the ground in part because we have an offensive line, you know, with guys that are playing, you know, the position of playing. Some of them for, you know, Jack Maliska's case, he's been playing the position for 3 weeks in his life. You know, and other guys that, you know, were, you know, our left tackle is playing left guard, and our left tackle, you know, our left tackle 2 weeks ago was playing right tackle, and they're all over the place. So we're struggling to find that consistency. You know, on defense, we're just making too many mistakes and not being disciplined in our assignments. It's very frustrating to watch, and when you do that against a good football team, you get exposed like we did tonight.
After last week's defensive performance, was it even more frustrating to see the mistakes?
It was. I mean, you know, there's a lot new issues, and some of it had to do with our opponent, certainly, but a lot of it had to do with just us. There was a lot of lack of communications. 2 of their touchdowns were total bust of communication. I can't even call it a busted coverage or whatever. You know, half the defense was playing one thing and half the other, and that reflects obviously on us as coaches more than anything. But you know, in a couple of cases, I can't even explain how it even happened. You know, we make one call, and like I said, it wasn't communicated. Obviously, because of the weather, you know, 80% of the crowd stayed away tonight, so there was no excuse, you know, from a noise standpoint.
Coach, was there a moment where you sort of felt like things were losing control a little bit? The team was losing control.
I'm sorry.
Was there a moment when you or the team sort of felt like you were losing control a little bit? Things were sort of, you know, getting out of control.
You know, even at the 1-3 point, you know, I fully realized the mistakes that we had made, and like I said, I mean, Harvard went out and executed plays, so you know, it's both of those things happening. But I was fully aware of the mistakes, so I was hopeful that we could just regain our poise and start playing our assignments. But we never really did in the first half. We never really got to that point where we were comfortable enough to regain that poise. And some of it is guys trying to do too much. When you have young players and things go bad, sometimes you go and try to make plays and do things that expose the rest of the team. And we saw some of that in earlier weeks, but we saw that in a big way tonight, where guys were going to try to make plays. We're chasing down the run when we're supposed to be contained. So they hit a couple bootlegs, they bounced the ball a couple of times, things like that. At 21-3, I was disappointed, but at the same time, I really still had hope that we could regain our composure and start playing the calls the way we were capable of and making a game out of it. But that just never happened.
You couldn't imagine your off strings and having that drop in the end zone. That was kind of your opportunity to score to answer them, and never really materialized after that.
No, I mean, that was our only time we, we're in the end zone with the ball in our hands. But, we were, in the third quarter, the Harvard defender came from the outside and knocked the ball out of Alex Schneider's hands when I thought he had beat the inside defender. But, it's a momentum thing, and for a young, struggling team right now, that would have been a real shot in the arm. It's just another emotional setback, when you leave points off the board like that. Disappointing, obviously, but obviously Harvard got the ball back and they went right down and scored, so it certainly made it even more difficult.
You've played Brown and Dartmouth. Can you compare Harvard to them?
It's really hard to do that. Obviously Harvard has already played Brown as well, and had an unbelievable second half against them, and won that game convincingly in the second half. I think Harvard was picked to win the Ivy League in the preseason poll, and that should be the case. They won it last year. They have a lot of returning starters. I think they're a very strong team. And the way they're playing right now, I think they're going to be hard to beat. But you don't beat teams by going outside yourself and not executing your assignments. And you have to play disciplined football, even more so against a good team. We certainly didn't do that tonight, and anyone that hopes to beat Harvard this year is going to have to do that for sure.
Anything else?